Welcome back to another episode of Questions with Crocker with your local emergency veterinarian, Dr. Crocker, and my husband, Shane.
Your local husband.
You are. You didn't say hi this time.
Hi.
You can still say hi, but you were going to work on a tagline.
Yeah. That was last episode.
Oh, okay.
Changed my mind.
I need to check in on you and make sure your mental health is okay because Texas decided to throw us a curveball and went from 80 degrees and beautiful and sunny to 40 to 50 degrees and cold, windy, and rainy. And this completely messed up your golf plans this week.
I'm going to audit my scores since Christmas. I bet I only played twice.
That's sad. That's sad. And I feel like I can tell when you don't play because
I would agree. I think we can all tell.
That's your outlet a little bit. That's the way that you decompress mentally, I feel like. What is my outlet? Do I ever decompress mentally?
No.
I would say, okay, actually you say that, but I would say it's like time with friends. So I enjoy getting together with girlfriends. I enjoy like talking to people. And so for some reason that fills my cup. Well, the reason is I'm an extrovert and you are not.
The opposite.
So being on a golf course by yourself is great. Do you ever show up and like you're supposed to play by yourself, but then you get put in a group with other people?
Not when I play, because I play mid-morning. All the old guys are already done, and most people are at work.
There's got to be some great interactions out there, though.
Probably.
Just no interest.
No interest.
No interest in talking to people.
We have 2 courses, so I can find an empty spot.
By yourself. We are so opposite. Like, it's just shocking sometimes. Okay, so if you are new to the podcast, Questions with Crocker is about questions that we get from people in the veterinary community or pet owners. I am an emergency vet, but we own a small animal general practice together also. So we talk a lot about practice ownership. We talk about veterinary medicine. We talk about being married and having kids and being a veterinarian and working together and owning a business together. So lots of different things going on.
Is it safe for the cat to be eating your breakfast?
It is probably safe, but I'll hide it down here until we're done real quick. And then the dog's right here. I mean, this is our lives. Very professional podcast action happening right now. But I did want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on this week and this weekend. So we have been continuing with the renovation. Can you give everyone an update? Because we've had some big things happening.
Made a few minor tweaks to the floor plan.
Minor tweaks.
And we have insulation coming in tomorrow. And once they insulate, they should be done tomorrow, actually. Pass that inspection, and then drywall, float, tape, paint, floors, cabinets, ready to roll. And
one of the big issues we've been having that we're hoping to fix with the renovation is we get little rodent critters that visit the building at night. And that's twofold. One, the building's been there for 50
years.
Yeah, a long time. And so there's little holes on the metal at the bottom, which we're going to fill and cover with the renovation. But the other thing is they're doing a huge development, I guess, behind our practice, and it's pushing everything out of there. And so they're coming into our building. So we've been trying to like put away anything that they could possibly get into. But now they're chewing on wires, which is just fabulous.
Very, very cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. Not ideal. And so we've gone back and forth on, we had a clinic cat before, and I didn't feel like he actually did his job. I felt like Chili was more of a menace than actually helpful. And he is with a foster right now during the renovation because doors are open and things are happening and we didn't want him to escape or get trapped somewhere. But now you were saying the other day, you think maybe he's doing a better job than we thought.
Yeah. Again, just going back to the facts of the data. We didn't have a problem. Now we do.
So
nothing
maybe
with the business has changed.
So maybe he was scaring off the rodents a little bit better than we thought.
I think so, yes.
So then the question becomes, should we have a clinic cat again?
That's outside of my pay grade.
Oh, is that in my swim lane?
That's above my pay grade, yeah.
Okay. I think that for me, clinic cats are something that are so cute and clients often love them and they have such personality. However, it is scary because coming from, especially like working in the emergency world, and you see really bad bite wounds on cats from dogs, you really get worried about a clinic cat, especially one like Chili that just got in every pet's face, like had no fear that all of a sudden they get snatched off the counter or something.
What if we gave our cat a new job?
No, Mr. Bobby is a house cat that likes to be here. He does not want to be a mouser
He might.
in the hospital.
Has anybody asked him?
And he's the best cat ever. So if he ever got bit by a dog under my, purview in the hospital, I would be very, very sad. So we're going back and forth. So if people have strong feelings about yes or no on a clinic cat, I would love to hear it. I'd love to hear good stories. They actually, speaking of dog bite wounds, I had a case come into the emergency room the other day, and it was a 6-month-old black cat like Bobby. So of course, made me a little sadder than normal, but he'd been attacked by a dog. And the interesting thing was I could only find like 2 puncture wounds kind of on the side of the stomach. I couldn't find a ton of other wounds, and he would walk, but he was, painful. So we had to give him a little bit of pain meds to assess him. And when I did, there was like a bulge on that side. So there's only 2 puncture wounds, but there was like a decent bulge under the skin. And I was like, this doesn't feel like it's just swelling from like bleeding or something like that. So we took an x-ray, and even though there's only 2 small puncture wounds on the outside, somehow that had also penetrated like the body wall and the muscle, and the contents of the belly were leaking out under the skin. And so it was a big hernia that was developing. And it's kind of like one of those things, it's a small hole. And as things come out, they're, normal size, and then it gets tighter, and then they start to expand. And so the cat needed emergency surgery. Fortunately, their regular vet was going to open in like 2 hours. So they were going to go there just because of cost. But it was definitely one of those things that from the outside, you're like, doesn't look that bad. And then a lot of dog bite wounds are like that because they grab and they go deeper than you think, and they pull. And so it'll rip more under the skin. So just a piece of advice, if you have dog bite wound and you go in and you just think, oh, it's 2 punctures, and the vet's like, we actually need to really make sure this is not just 2, more, listen to them, because it could be something much more serious.
I thought only old guys got hernias from lifting stuff.
Old guys or women that have had babies, but no, animals will get hernias too. They'll actually get them on their belly, on their umbilicus, where the umbilical cord was attached, and kids get that. So you fix that during like a spay or neuter, and that's straightforward. But some of them will get them like on the sides or down in the inguinal area, and those are a little more serious. But
now I know.
Yeah. I mean, now you know for your next attack by dog cat situation that you come across. Hopefully you never experience that, because that would be our cat and dog, and that would make me really sad. So sorry, that was an aside, but definitely an interesting case. And the cat will be fine, because we joke in veterinary medicine that cats are like the best healers. I once had a cat, especially during these cold seasons, that got up in a car engine. The engine went off, and the cat, just like all the skin on its body, pretty much got fried. And so it was getting wound care for like several months, and it was like naked, like no skin, nothing on it. And we were doing wound care. And that cat within like 2 months had grown back all its skin, like almost all its hair, looked like nothing had ever happened. So cats are amazing healers. And there's not many things I wouldn't try to surgically repair on a cat, because they will often heal really well. Dogs, on the other hand, will have like the smallest thing ever.
Like a horse.
Yeah. And you'll be like, this is going to go great. And you take it off, and then it's like 3 weeks of infection and other issues. And I'm like, ugh, this is a cat to be fine. You're right, like a horse, because horses also, when I worked on horses, always found a way to hurt themselves. Mm-hmm. And we would joke in some ways that it was job security, because you could put them in a plastic bubble and they would still find a way to injure themselves, which is very, very true. Okay, so all that aside, all the interesting cases we see in veterinary medicine, I wanted to talk about something that we have gotten quite a lot of questions about. We've mentioned it in other podcasts. And then when we had Dr. Staten on, who owned Adobe Vet Center, it's a large practice. I think she said, 55 employees or?
I don't think her podcast has been released yet.
Oh, well, when we talked to her, this is a little sizzler. When we talked to her, we talked about paying everybody. And she does what we do, which is she does technician tiers. And so essentially when people come in, you talk about what skills they have. And we have level 1, 2, and 3. And then based on the skills, you pay them the pay ranges that we have already preset. I like it because it's very transparent, and it makes my job easier in saying, I'm going to pay you based off your skill set, not based off you're my friend's kid, or you're, a relative, or there's some other, I guess, connection. I just think it keeps things a little more fair as much as you can. But it is interesting because with our practice, we had a couple people grandfathered in that don't necessarily fit quite into the tiers and the payment that they're getting. And so when you buy an existing practice, I think it's a little harder to institute these policies, but I still think it's important.
I would agree. I think that's something that obviously when you get grandfathered in employees, a lot of times it's to your best interest to figure out a way to work with those individuals. They know the customers, they know the workflow. A lot of times, kind of the best approach to make sure everybody's stays there. And sometimes it's in an environment where you're actually giving them pay increases because they fit certain areas. Sometimes it is that they, have to increase their skills to get to the par level that they're on. So I don't think that you can not implement something like this because you have existing employees. You just have to find a way to mold it and make it work.
And communicate it really, really well to everyone. And the hard thing for me has always been, how do you define the value of someone? And I like having something that's very obvious. So our level 1, just to explain a little bit more, our level 1 is kind of your basic restraint, your basic handling of animals, knowing the basics of, disease processes and how to explain certain things. But it's very, very minimal basic care. Level 2, you get a lot more into the actual technical procedures. So a lot more with doing blood draws, the easier ones, doing suture removal, doing basic radiographs. So those skills that you're going to basically tell a technician like, hey, get this done. And you want to be able to like walk away and they can just handle it. And then level 3 for us is all those things with 1 and 2, but then also adding on some more significant ones. So the big one for me is ultrasound training. So at my last practice, we had people certified in ultrasound. They could do a full abdominal scan and we could submit it to the radiologist. And I didn't have to do anything with that patient. And that's the goal with the levels, is to have people who can work at that ability and capacity. It also has things like jug casts, central lines, higher level skills that you don't use as frequently, but it's really, really valuable to have somebody there who can do it. And we also have on there more ER skills, so triaging and being able to stabilize. So something that if I'm in a room and I'm doing something and, a critical patient comes in, like these techs know these are the things I'm going to check. It's in respiratory distress. Okay, I'm going to do this and they're going to go in oxygen. Or, if it's a puppy that's really weak, I'm going to check a glucose because I know that's important. So it's that higher level thinking that you really want to see in every single person that works in the hospital. But I think having it very defined is great. The problem I have is having all that, but then also having some other things that make an employee valuable. So for me, it's reliability, showing up every day. It's your attitude. If you have a great attitude, if you are great with clients, if you aren't cliquey, if you're just helpful in general, I have a really hard time not wanting to just automatically pay those people more that are almost easier employees to deal with and also better employees overall for the team. So how do you look at that? And does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. So I think you pay based off a skill set and you hire based off of cultural and personality traits.
Ooh, that's good.
So when you're doing through the hiring process, which we've talked to several vets that have removed themselves from that hiring process, and I really, really, really like that.
Are you saying you don't want me to be a part of hiring?
I think you have great talents that should be used elsewhere in the practice.
I think I am good at reading people.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
So I am good at like recognizing someone who their personality would fit with the team.
I think Peter said my practice needed a lot more other skill sets and characteristics, not another Peter. So sometimes I think we have the tendency to hire based on that motto that, birds of feather fly together type thing.
Okay.
So I want to hire people that I like or people that are like me, but that may not be what the business needs. Right?
It's a little humbling because I feel like as I think about who I've been looking for and who I want to hire, I definitely am seeking out characteristics that I think are probably strong in me. So I can see what you're saying.
Which at our level of practice may be what we need, right? At this point, we may need another you, and then the practice continues to build with filling in the gaps of things we need. But back to my point, I think you hire based off of certain characteristics or culture, but you pay based off of their abilities and their skills.
Okay.
This is my personal opinion.
That makes sense. I think you also hire based off of availability. So, what is the hourly need that you have, what days you need. I'll see a lot of people get really excited about somebody, but then when they go over the schedule or they talk about things, it doesn't align with what that person is able to do. And while I like to be flexible in scheduling in a practice, you can only have so many people, working a limited schedule or working limited days, or else you're not able to staff your practice appropriately. So I think that that makes a lot more sense when you say it that way. But culturally, and it doesn't have to be that for me that they're extroverted or they are, I guess hustler is a negative term nowadays, but it doesn't have to be that they're that way. For me, it's really that they just fit with the rest of the team. So, our personality of our practice, like we always say that we're having fun helping pets. And I really want to maintain that. I want us to be able to have a good time together. We sometimes play jokes on each other. We have a lot of running jokes. And so those things are important to me to maintain the culture of the practice as a whole.
Completely agree. But you're not going to hire that person and pay him more because you really like how well they play a joke, right?
You would think that. But let's be honest, there's probably businesses that you know of, and there's certainly practices I know of where the veterinarian has made a unilateral decision and has hired somebody that they just really, really like and has paid them a ton of money. And that doesn't usually go well.
Okay.
What do you think about pay transparency? So one of the things that I like about the tiered system is, you can show them and say, these are the tiers and these are the tiers you're in. And everyone kind of has an idea of who's in what tier and what they're getting paid. Do you think that is valuable in a practice for people to have an idea of what each other gets paid? Or do you think that is a negative?
I think it solves a lot of problems. So one, employees have the tendency of sharing what they make, whether they mean to or not. And if you have pay where it's scattered all over the place, that's going to create an environment where you have somebody that is upset because they're not making as much, warranted or not. That's just kind of how it happens. So that person becomes, an employee that doesn't want to be there or doesn't give their all because they don't feel like they're being compensated well. They start looking for other jobs, etc. So I think this eliminates that piece. And allows people to also have an idea of growth, right? There's no guess of how much am I going to make next year or what I have to do to get a raise. It's black and white. If you go from this skill set to this skill set, you're going to bump up to this next pay level. We have ranges, which gives us a little bit of flexibility based on some of those soft skills. Mm-hmm. I could just as easily say this is a set in stone dollar amount, whether it's a salary or an hourly wage, that it's set in stone. And then you continue to move that model as opposed to using ranges. But there are some value in having, kind of a squeezed down range like we have.
Yeah, I like the ranges just because it allows us to bring someone in. And maybe if they are like a 1-2, like they don't quite fit in level 2, but they're a little more skilled than 1, then I can start them out like low level 2, but they know the rest of the skills they need to work on. And so, what I did is I printed off all the lists, and then I pulled aside each technician and I said, here's a list. I put on there, like, here's your current pay per hour. This is the level you fall in. I really want you to go through this and check off all the skills you feel like you have. And you don't have to give it back to me. I didn't really want it to be like I hate it when it's like, you assess yourself and I'll assess you and we'll come together. I don't like those conversations. I think focusing on the future is better than really going over things in the past and hammering on certain things. So I basically said, this is yours. I want you to look at it. I want you to go through it. And that way in your mind, you know the things you need to work on. I already know. I know the things that I want you to get better at, and it's this, this, and this. And I gave each of them like very concrete things that I wanted them to keep growing in. So that expectation is set of what I'm watching for. And some of them were soft skills. So, on some of them, I'd really like you to get this training or keep working on, your anesthesia knowledge. But also, as an employee who has been here a long time, this is what I expect from you culturally. This is what I expect from you as a leader. And I think it's important to kind of hit on both those things. But we really focused on their future, what they can improve on. But taking that home, being able to look through it and get an idea of what am I watching for and what I need is important. But I don't love the idea of fill out a form about yourself and then we'll go over it together. I think we're moving away from that with reviews, and a lot of the feedback I'm getting at conferences is don't worry about things in the past, like really focus on setting expectations for the future. But then my question to you is what happens if they don't meet those expectations?
In this model, they're not growing or progressing. I think it just depends on the need of the clinic, right? The practice. So as an example, you may have a level 1 technician that's always a level 1 technician, right? And you need level 1 technicians. There's no problem with that.
Right.
As long as they're satisfied with the pay that they have and they're a good hard worker and culturally they fit, I don't care if they don't progress.
Right.
I think you want to hire people that want to continue to improve and get better and better themselves, but it's not a guarantee you have to have that.
Well, and that has been said a lot, that you in a practice, you actually need a lot of worker bees. You don't need a lot of queen bees that everyone is doing things for that are always trying to get to the top. Like a practice only runs if you have people at each level that are doing each set of skills and are doing them really well and with a great attitude. And so I used to, and this is probably part of what you're talking about with me hiring for people like me. I used to really think that you wanted people who were driven, who always wanted to grow, who wanted to make a ton more money. You wanted really hungry people. And I think what I've seen more as I've been in the profession is you do want people that want to grow, but it's okay to also have people that are comfortable where they are and are really great where they are. I've known technicians who are amazing technicians and have great skills and get along really well with everyone. And, they've been offered a leadership position to be a tech manager. And really, they were self-aware enough to say, I don't want leadership responsibilities. I don't want to be scheduling. I don't want to do conflict resolution. Like that is not what I'm good at. I am good at being here, being on the floor and dealing with people. And that's enough for me. I don't need to keep growing, up vertically in this profession. And so it's important as a leader to know what personalities you're dealing with and why. And I even said to one of the people I talked to yesterday, I said, I know you're financially motivated, so I just need you to let me know if you're feeling okay about where you're at. And if you want to grow financially, that now you know what you need to work on, because I just know that person and I know what they want. So you really have to look at it as a leader of what does each team member need to feel valued, and also who is just a rock star where they are. And it's okay if where they are is not where other people want to be and other people want to keep growing, because you need all types.
I would completely agree. And we're talking specifically about technicians here, the technical staff, but you could just as easily plug this model in for your customer service reps, et cetera. I mean, we haven't done that in our practice, but I think that would be something we want to take a look at. As a customer service rep, what skill sets do you have and how do we tier the pay for these guys as well?
That one I think might be a little trickier just because there are so many soft skills that go into being a great CSR. And the same thing with a technician with communication and things like that. But man, if you are up front, I really think that person that can just talk to anybody and has that bubbly personality, has a great memory for people. They may not always be the best person on the computer or the best person with technology, but every single client that walks in the door knows them and wants them to help them, and they feel seen and appreciated by this person. There's a lot of value in that. And so that's the only hard thing for me, more so with that position in levels, is how do you quantify personality? And one of the best receptionists that I ever worked with, her name was Yabi, and she was just a shining, sparkling personality, and everyone that met her never forgot her. And she actually was somebody that worked at a bank, and my old boss would always go into that bank, and she just was so welcoming, so funny, and just really knew like her job really well. And he just kept saying like, I really want you to work for me. I really want you to come. Like you get to see dogs and cats. It'd be so fun. And she's like, oh, no, I work at the bank. And eventually he, stole her from the bank, and she worked for him for years and years and years and years and years. And she was such a important part of that practice and almost like, a heartbeat of that practice. And so I think personality really does make a big difference at the front desk. And that is it's just a harder thing to do a level for.
Well, again, I don't think you're doing a level for the personality, right? You hire them because of that great personality.
True.
You give them ability to progress inside of your practice.
Based on skills,
right? So do they have good knowledge of the dental grades, right? So they can schedule those appropriately. Do they understand enough of the lingo to say this is an emergency, you need to come in, or they having to walk to the back and ask you a question every time, right? So I think there's different things that you can do to help increase those skill sets and pay them accordingly. And maybe it's just based off of CE, right? Every year you got to do so much CE and you get this bump. Like I think there's a way that you can tier that model and still not have it be a wide range of we like this person so pay him more. It's get them in the door because of personality. They hit this pay range and they get adjusted based off of these skills.
See, this is why you're the logical one. Because that was great. I mean, that made perfect sense when you laid it out. I think when I think about the skills, it is harder for me to like pull them versus technical skills. But you're absolutely right. There's very specific things that make somebody a good, efficient CSR, and you can put those on paper pretty easily. So I think that's going to be our next job that we need to work on with all the other
2025.
things. 2025. We're not making 2025 goals. We still have so many goals in 2024. Speaking of that, we'll wrap it up with what are some of your biggest goals for us in the practice this year?
For the practice this year, getting the door open.
Renovation.
For the new renovation side.
Yes.
That will then lead to renovations in the old part of the practice. So we're going to have renovations going on for a little while. Get all the renovations behind us. And I'd like to see some pretty significant growth towards the third, fourth quarter, 2024.
I agree, because my goal would be to grow the team. And to grow the team, I need to have growth in the practice as a whole. So definitely want to get the renovation done so we have more space so that we can do some of the things that I want to do marketing wise, and then also with servicing clients. And I think in the new space with the flow and hopefully client experience that we can give, that will be something also that will continue to help us grow.
But I very specifically gave you some numbers of the day to show based on our current.
And we were doing okay.
Employee expense ratios.
We were in the range.
That we need to continue to stay in those ranges.
So this is what I was seeing is like, okay, so if my employee expense is this and we need to make this much for this, so we just need to keep doing this.
There's some truth to that, yeah.
So as long as they're both increasing, which they are, as long as they're both increasing, then we're still okay.
I completely agree with that.
So that's we'll see. We'll see how it goes. You can continue to listen if you want to hear how everything goes. Definitely, if you're interested in the technician tier model for pay, you can reach out to us. We'd be happy to share that.
I do want to get, because I feel like, I know Dr. Staten mentioned it. Did Dr. King mention it as well? Did they do a similar model?
I don't know that. I don't feel like she did mention it.
I can't remember now. But I'd like to get their models and bump them up to ours and see if ours can be
what they
modified
are and adjusted.
Yes.
We can definitely do that. I also, yes.
Hold that thought for another day.
Yeah, my brain is now like with things that need to happen. So we're going to go make a list, because if I can get it on a piece of paper, then my brain will close down a little bit more.
And would also love other feedback from other people that are doing things a little bit different.
Yes.
So I think if you haven't learned anything about our practice, is that we're not afraid to try stuff and pivot as needed.
It's a little bit of an experiment what we're doing, because we have some ideas and we say all the time, like, we are not experts. We are learning along the way. We're learning with you if you're a practice owner. And we really do like feedback on these things. And honestly, if you're a technician who works in a practice that they have a tiered model and you do or don't like it, I would also like that feedback, because I'd love to know why you do or don't like it, or what the communication is around it. Because I think all those things will only make us better as a whole. So overall, I think it's the right direction that we're headed in, and now we need to apply it to CSRs. We, again, are not experts. We are just entrepreneurs, a veterinarian.
They just bought another business as of today.
We did buy another business today. We have a couple things going on. So speaking of things going on, I am going to TVMA this weekend, and then we have some family things, and then I'm actually headed to Ross Veterinary School. So just want to make sure I throw that out there in case any students from Ross listen to the podcast. I would love to see you. I'll be speaking at the school.
I was supposed to go to Ross, I'm pretty sure.
So we're going to just gloss over that and pretend like I'm not going to the beach while you're not going. We have a lot of trips right around this time, and so there's only so many things that you can go on and, cannot go on. It makes me uncomfortable. I'm like squiggling in my seat. So, but if you'll be at Ross, I would be happy to see you there. And then I think I'll be at Mississippi State towards the end of the month. And I've never been to Mississippi State. So
you did? You got approved to go to school there?
I haven't been there as a speaker. That was like 15, 16 years ago.
When was that? 2004?
It was a long time ago. 2005 or 6. Yeah.
You graduated in 2009.
5. That was 2005. I got
Don't
into Mississippi State.
Wasn't there like a catfish? Wasn't there something around catfish?
They actually, I don't know, maybe. I don't remember that. But I remember a couple things. I remember one, you had to dress up to go to class there. Like it was like you could not be schleppy. And I'm definitely like schleppy when I go to class. And number 2, I don't know if that's a word. Am I using that word correctly?
I don't know.
Harris, you might cut that because I don't know if I feel like it might be a slang word. Number 1, you had to dress up to go to class, and you could not look like a bum. That might not be an appropriate word either.
We're trying to get canceled today. You're on Questions with Crocker.
Let me try. This is the last one. Number 1, you had to dress up to go to class. And then you also stayed with current students when you went there and interviewed, which was interesting, which was actually great because you got to get to know them and the personality. And the school was great. And honestly, if I hadn't gone into A&M, that would have been the school that I went to.
Over LSU?
I just got into a couple different schools. Oh, don't make me choose. Actually, well, my dad probably, LSU would have been the one. So anyways, A&M was the one because of the cost, and I already had gone to A&M as undergrad. So, but Mississippi State was a good experience interviewing and doing all the things there. So it was fun. All right. If you enjoyed this podcast, if you want to give us feedback, you can leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. We'd love to hear your questions. It's the only way the podcast keeps going. And again, if you want to learn more about the tiered system, reach out to us. You can reach out over at Questions with Crocker on social media. We have a Facebook page too. And you can watch us on YouTube. We're not quite awake this morning, but you can see our cat is here with us. And we are just happy to be here and be interacting with the vet med community and learning from one another. So thanks, everybody, and have a great day.